Hi, Chris here with Angler Toolbox, continuing the video on exploring different data layers within the map. I've already scrolled down to the middle of the page in this embedded map, the Coastal Angler app. And this is the default view with the electronic nautical charts and observations. And what I want to do is show you a couple additional layers that were not shown in the first two videos. Scrolling down here, let's turn off the charts and the bathymetry imagery and the marine observations and just leave it at the base map for now. What I want to show is, I think, pretty cool. This is an analysis of striped bass fishing density. So this was a U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service survey that happened in, I believe, 2012. And this is a derived data layer that analyzes the density of boat fishing for striped bass specifically. I'll be adding other species up here, about 10 different species. Bluefish, fluke, porgy, we have sharks, all kinds of different fishing inshore, mostly, a little bit offshore. But right now this is showing striped bass, and I'll zoom into an area so you can get a better view of what this looks like. So what this is basically telling you is the density of boats that were recorded during the survey, volunteered information about where they were fishing, and this provides no other information. It's just a cluster of what's happening around fishing density. So it can tell you a couple different things. One is you might expect a lot of boats in these areas if you're out at peak times. It doesn't mean it's the only spot you'll find striped bass, but certainly you have a pretty good chance if the boats are out there spending money on gas and spending a lot of time in the area, there's probably fish in the area. So it's a relative correlation to where you're going to find fish and striped bass in general. But because there are lighter areas doesn't mean there are no fish. I mean, obviously there are fish along this area of the coast as well. But maybe you pick that spot if you want to go kayaking, you know, on a given day where it's suitable for kayaking here. You might do that and try to avoid the high density of boat traffic that occurs in these other areas. Plymouth, a lot less than Boston Harbor. So that's another example of a layer that's inside of here, striped bass fishing density seagrasses. This is a very detailed layer that actually goes all the way up and down the coast, I think all the way down to Florida. Let's take a look. Offshore, yep. So a lot in Florida, for example, take a look here. A lot of the keys, and especially the back bay and the keys themselves, are surrounded by grasses. Let's zoom back to the original layer or extent. And you can see a lot of Buzzards Bay, coastal areas with seagrasses. But this is kind of nice if you want to find, depending on the tides and currents, areas that you can access on the edges of some of these weed beds. Could be a handy tool to figure out where there might be certain food sources and fish looking for them. Let's see, we talked about wind and waves in the other video. Open space. Before I do open space, bottom type. Scrolling out a little bit, a lot of different bottom types here. Just for example, let's take a look at what this dark gray means. There's tan all through here, and then dark gray. I'm guessing this is rock, and tan is going to be sand. Scroll down the main page, look at the map legend. Sand, light tan, bedrock, gray. So kind of a handy tool if you're looking for different bottom types for certain species of fish. Okay. Turn off the bottom type. We can take a look at tide stations. Have this all up and down the northeast for now. I'll be adding this up and down the coast. To see what that looks like, you simply click on an icon. This is all interactive. And clicking on this image, you'll get the official tides from NOAA. It puts you off on the tides and currents page for that station. And then you can use the page like you probably normally see it. Highs and lows for the day, the next day. Look at the predictions and general heights. It's just a web tab, so I'm going to close that tab in the browser, close this dialog, turn off the layer, and we're on to the next layer, which here is bait and tackle shops along the coast. with labels showing what they are. I need to change that. First light has closed, I believe. Click on it, you get the address. Basic information. I have another layer coming together which will have phone numbers and eventually web links so you can get to those websites more easily. Boat launches. Where are all the launches along the coast? For now, in Massachusetts. Tells you a bit more about the launch, the name, type of surface, total parking places, its general condition, whether or not there's a fee, and other comments like this one is a half-tide ramp or for shallow draft boats. Something to be aware of before you make a plan to go all the way there if you're not familiar with this area. The Coastal Angler app is really well suited to people who like to explore different areas and might not have all the local knowledge that others would have. It just helps streamline the experience, hopefully have a better experience, save some time in the planning process, and have a better trip overall. That's the goal. So closing that, this is all MassGIS data. Again, other states will have other boat launch data, and I'll include that later. What else do we have? Tides, access points, reports I discussed in the other video, wrecks and obstructions. There are many shipwrecks, different types of data to look at. This is part of a really large database. An underwater inventory. So you can't really click on these and get any more information, but it at least shows you in a different view a lot of the shipwrecks that are also on the nautical charts. So if I go and turn on the raster chart, they're probably recorded, at least most of these would be. When you zoom in and get the detail. Yeah, so you can see how these two here, wreck, those are common symbols and data that they capture on these raster charts. So that's what I have for today. Hope you find this useful. Spend some time exploring the tool. Let me know if you have any trouble with it. If you have any questions, any suggestions on functionality to add or data layers to add, what would be most helpful. Would be more than happy to hear that and get the feedback, both good and bad. I take critical feedback as very useful because it means you want to get something in here, and I would be happy to add it if it's feasible, and we'll get some of those things wrapped in over time. Again, thanks for watching, and hope to see you on the site.